Welcome to At Home with Music. This is Lesson 3 in our series From Ears to Fingers. Let me give you ahead of time some of the basic concepts that we're going to be covering in this series as you learn how to play by ear. First of all, we're going to learn about scales. Now, you might be thinking, scales, that's something that they teach you in piano lessons. But sometimes they just teach you that so that you can learn how to move your fingers properly. But we're going to learn about scales for a different reason. Scales are often used in the construction of melodies, and they are also used in the construction of chords. And in order to learn properly about scales, we need to learn about intervals. Learning about intervals will help you pick out melodies and determine where a melody is going more easily just by doing it by ear. So an interval, the basic definition is the space between two notes. So if you've got two notes, there's a specific name for the interval between those two notes, and we'll get into that in just a little while. And so once we know the scales and the intervals, and then the chords that can be built on scales, because you'll find out a lot of these chords, all of them actually, are chords that you already know. Then we're going to learn how to play basic chord sequences, which we touched upon a little bit in the Music Basics series. Then we're going to learn how to take a melody and add chords to it. And that is the foundation for playing by ear. You pick out a melody, you figure out what chords go with it, and then you're able to play a song without referring to sheet music. And then one other thing that we're going to cover is transposing, which we learned from the introduction is the ability to play the same song, but in a different key. So let's go on, and we're going to talk a little bit about scales. I'm going to assume that from your study in the Music Basics series, you already know the layout of the keyboard, you know the names of the keys, you know about sharps and flats. Let's talk about scales now. Scales are used differently in classical music than they are in pop music. Now, in classical music, scales are often used to liven things up. Here's a famous example. If you play this piece by Mozart, and here comes the scales. I haven't practiced this in a while, so it's a little clumsy. I wasn't using the right fingers. But nevertheless, there's a scale. It's just going up and down. Now, in pop music, scales are rarely used as part of a melody. In fact, the only song I can think of off the top of my head that uses a scale is the opening line to Joy to the World. There's a scale. And so if scales really don't make up a lot of popular music, why do we need to learn them? Well, the melody, all the melodies that you play are made up of notes from the scale. Now, as you know from your study of the keyboard, there are 12 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But not all of these notes are necessarily used when you're playing a melody. The melody is based on the notes of a specific scale. So if you're playing a really simple tune like this, you can see that I'm playing all white keys. There aren't any black keys in there, and I'm only using 6 different notes. Now you can build a scale on each one of these 12 notes. Let's start with the C major scale, because that's the one that can be played on white keys. So we start on middle C, and we simply play all the notes up to the next C. You might recognize that as Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do from The Sound of Music. Listen to the sound of this scale. If we stop one note short, your ear is going, hey, finish that scale. Ah, it's kind of like going, got to do it, got to finish it. We train our ears to hear the sound of a scale because that makes it easier for us to figure out a tune by ear. We also need to train our ear to hear the difference between half steps and whole steps. This is something we also touched upon in the Music Basics series. So as you're playing a scale, there is a series of half steps and whole steps that go into making up the scale. I want you to listen now to the whole step, half step pattern as we play through the C major scale. Notice I'm playing from C, and then when I go to the next key, that's a whole step. Why? Because there's a key in the middle. There's another whole step, but now look, between E and F, that's a half step. So we have whole step, half step, and then when we go to the next note, it's another whole step, still another one, and then finally a half step. So the pattern is whole step, half step, whole step, half step. I challenge you to say that very fast. That's the pattern of a C major scale. Now, you can start on any note and build a scale just like that. So let's start on E. Now we know that the next note in the E major scale has to be a whole step away. So it's not going to be F, it's going to be F sharp. And then we have to go a whole step up from F sharp. And then finally a half step, whole step, half step. Not only can you do this by counting whole steps and half steps, but you can hear it. You already know the sound of a C major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I'm not much of a singer. But the scale, it has a particular sound, the major scale. So if you transpose it to another key, if you play this, you know that's not quite right. Your ear's going to tell you, no, it's got to be this note. And then if you do this, no, that's not right. Ah. So now you know just by listening to it. That's a major scale. Now this requires some thought. You know, when you're taking classical piano, sometimes you learn the scales by rote. Here you're thinking about it. You're thinking about how it sounds, and you're thinking about the intervals. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. There, I said it a little bit faster. And so this is the reason behind learning scales. It's for playing melody, and it's for building chords. We're doing this all without looking at sheet music. So that's enough for this particular video. We'll get into even more of this in the next lesson. I invite you to like and subscribe. Ring the little bell so that you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded. I believe that this is valuable information to help you really enjoy making music.